I start talking. These two guys, Dominic and Ray, after the '78 World Series, when I become the most valuable player, we go to spring training in 1979. George puts Ray as my roommate. And so he was broke back then, like we all were, but I had a little bit of money. I used to keep my briefcase under the thing. I say, Ray, you need any money? Well, come to find out later on, George put him in his room to follow me at night. He wanted to know where I was going. So George called him one night and he says, okay, give me the scoop. Where's Bucky going? He goes to dinner with his priest friend every night. George goes, you gotta get out of here. Don't be saying that, you know. But that's a true story. I mean, George did put him on me and he followed me around. Never could catch me because I was always out to dinner with Father Joe. But I want to thank you so much, Nancy, Dom, Jim Cott, Bob Costas for the kind words. And a huge thank you to Rennie and his committee for this truly special and meaningful honor. I can honestly say here tonight that I am blessed beyond, as my dreams have all come true. And I'm going to get into those in a little bit. But I know I wouldn't be here tonight getting this incredible honor if it weren't for all of you here tonight in the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame. New York has always felt like home to me. I'm grateful for the love and support and my beloved family right over here. We traveled up here tonight. First of all, my beautiful wife, Angie. Yeah! I love you. She's my sunshine, and that's her nickname. I call her Sunshine. My son, Scott, his wife, Mel, my daughter, Stacy, her husband, John. You're always and will be my pride and joy. My stepson, Charlie. He's the biggest Yankee fan ever, and we love to argue. He says, we need to get this guy, and I go, why? Where's he going to play? But we love to argue, but he's fulfilling his dream by getting his master's in sports mental performance coaching, and we need a lot of those today. A lot of mental coaches. But my dear brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Dr. Barry Mangle, they welcome me with loving arms into the family. They're beautiful, and I love them dearly. And some of my special long-term friends, Joe and Elsa Illagash. And I got some stories later on. Pastor Rick and his wife Tori. Pastor Rick is the Coast Guard chaplain for the Coast Guard, and he's been a friend of mine, a spiritual mentor. Love him to death. And Sam Donadio's here tonight, one of my other good friends, and he brought a whole table. And some people that aren't here. The guy that got me started in sports, who I love to death, he was my mentor. He taught me all about sports, made me tough, made me disciplined. That's my brother Jim, his wife Bert. They weren't able to make it tonight. And Father Joe, who was my mental coach back when I played, when mental coaching was like voodoo. You didn't have one of those because if you did, they thought something was wrong with you, you know. But I did in my incredible in-laws, Les and Jeannie Averson, who are the parents I always dreamed of having, and of course my agent, Andrew Levy. Some of the people in baseball, general manager, I heard Roland Heeman's name come up earlier tonight. Roland was one of my favorite all-time general managers. He brought me up with the White Sox. Some of the great managers, Chuck Tanner, Dick Hauser, loved playing for those guys. Billy Martin, I'm going to mention him, but he didn't like me too much. We didn't get along very well. He used to pinch hit for me all the time, and I hated it. The great fans of New York. I love New York, and I love playing in New York. I love the thrill. I love the challenge. And last but not least, the greatest owner, George Steinbrenner. Yeah. Loved him. And Jack McKeon said, you know, we're hard to be fired, and I got fired by him also. But God has truly smiled on me in my career, and I started a long time ago, and my dream was to be a New York Yankee. And I started playing sports very young, and back then in school, the teacher would come in and say, hey, if you guys are good, I'm going to put the World Series game on, because the World Series was played back in the daytime. And so I got mesmerized by this guy by the name of Mickey Mantle, number 7. He was my hero, and he was the guy that I was in the backyard, playing stickball, wiffle ball, whatever, and I always said, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, I'm going to hit a home run. And guess what? It wasn't a grand slam, but it was a big home run. And played high school sports, went on, played junior college for one of the great coaches of all time, Dr. Demi Maneri. He's a Hall of Fame coach. Just played there 1 year, got drafted, signed with the White Sox, started my career, went to Sarasota, didn't stay there very long, and then I went to Appleton, Wisconsin, and my roommate was Rich Gossage and Terry Forster. A hard-throwing lefty, a hard-throwing right. And we slept on 1 mattress, 2 sheets, and 1 blanket. We drove a 1963 Chevy, made $500 a month, $6 a day meal money, and we were living the dream. We were living the dream. It was a special thing. But Terry Forster went first, Goose Gossage went second to the major leagues, and I went third in 1973. And believe it or not, I got the call in 1973, and Roland Heeman said, listen, I'm going to pick you up in Chicago, and we got to drive to Milwaukee because we can't get a flight to get you in there, for the game, and we need you. I said, okay, so I fly to Chicago, we drive to, to Milwaukee. I get there in the 3rd inning. Now, picture this. I have never seen a major league game in a major league stadium in my life. So I get there, I get dressed, I'm scared to death. And the tunnel in an old Milwaukee stadium had to be 75 yards long. And I'm walking, and I step out in the dugout for the first time ever in a major league stadium, and I was like mesmerized. And I kind of eased in, sat down. Chuck Tanner came over and said, hey, glad to be here, Bucky, Well, later on in the game, he put me in to play second base. Now I played shortstop. I played a little second base in spring, and this first ball hit to me was a towering pop fly. I think George Scott hit it, and all I could say to myself was, please don't drop this thing. Please don't drop this thing. Well, 73, at the end of 73, one of my first dreams, go to the Chicago Bulls game. Never been to a basketball game. Sitting in 4th row right behind the Bulls bench, 4 guys walk in. They got suits on. My buddy sitting next to me taps me on the shoulder and goes, hey, you know who that guy is right there in front of us? He goes, that's George Steinbrenner. He owns the Yankees. You want to meet him? George was suspended that year for illegal contributions, but he was at the game. And he was part owner of the Bulls. So I said, yeah. So I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, Mr. Steinbrenner, I'm Bucky Dent. I'm the shortstop for the Chicago White Sox. And he goes, I've been trying to get you, kid. And I almost fainted right there. So I'm thinking, oh my God, one of these days I'm going to be a New York Yankee, I hope, Well, 74 I played. 75, Goose and I make the All-Star team. The next dream comes true. We go back to Milwaukee. Mickey Mantle's the captain of the American League team. Hank Aaron's the captain of the National League team. So Goose and I go out to dinner. We're walking, we're joking and laughing. We're going out to this restaurant. I open the door, and Goose stopped. And I go, what's the matter? He goes, look around the door. I look around the door. There he is, bigger than life. Mickey Mantle and Billy Martin are standing there. And we didn't know what to say. We were scared to death. We walked in there. We go, Mr. Mantle, Bucky Dent, Goose Gossage, Billy, Bucky Dent, Goose Gossage, But that was my first thrill of meeting Mickey Mantle. And then I go to spring training, 1977. My good friend, Joe Elagash, worked for 60 Minutes. They're doing a story on George Steinbrenner. So he calls me. He says, hey, you got to stay home tonight. Bill Veeck and George are meeting tonight, and they're going to make a trade for you. I stayed home 30 straight days. I called him. I said, I'm not staying home tonight. I'm going out. So I went out, but the next day, we're getting ready to go to Toronto to play the first game of Toronto in the league. I'm putting stuff in the car. I go back. Phone rings. I pick up the phone, and I hear this crowd. So I go, hello? He goes, Bucky Dent? I go, yeah. He goes, this is George Steinbrenner. I go, get out of here. Get out of here. This ain't George Steinbrenner. He goes, yeah, it's George Steinbrenner. I have a deal to make you a New York Yankee if you'll sign a contract. I said, give me 5 minutes. I'll call you right back. Nick Bonicani, the great linebacker from the Miami Dolphins, was my agent. So I call him up and I go, Nick, George Steinbrenner just called me. Call him up and make the deal. He called me back about 10 minutes later and said, you're going to be a New York Yankee. Big dream. Big dream. Big dream came true. So I tell the story that the first day, again, Joe and Elsa picked me up, drove me to Yankee Stadium. Now, I'm scared to death. They had just played in the World Series, and I'm going to go into the Yankee Stadium the first day, carry my bags. I walk in the locker room. All I can see is Gary, Ruth, Mantle, DiMaggio. And I'm starting to walk over to my locker, and here comes Billy Martin. Comes walking out. I drop my bags real quick. Now in Chicago, I was a little bit of an idol, so I had long hair, you know, and you know, we wore those stupid shorts in '76 and stuff like that. But Billy walks out. He walks out and he says, Bucky, I go, yeah. He goes, glad to have you, man. Get a haircut. I said, yes, sir. Well, I'm going to tell you another funny story. Pinella, at Old Timers Day, a couple years ago, we were talking about, you know, how we became Yankees. He goes, let me tell you my story, how I became a Yankee. He goes, I got traded to New York and I was so excited about being a Yankee. He says, I went to spring training a couple days early. And he says, I went over to George's office. I'm sitting there waiting for him to come out. He comes out. And he goes, George, Mr. Steinbrenner, I am so excited to be here. I just can't wait to get started. And he goes, Lou, we're glad to have you, man. But he says, you got to cut your hair. Lou looks at him and goes, George, you know, Jesus Christ had long hair. And he said George's face kind of turned, and he goes, come here, Lou. Lou says, I don't know what the heck he was doing. We go outside, we walk across the parking lot, and there's a pond across the parking lot. He looks at Lou and he says, Lou, if you can walk across that water like Jesus Christ, you can have long hair. Well, 1977 was a thrill for me. You know, I came over late. You know, we had the Son of Sam and all that kind of stuff, and we were scared to death. You know, we didn't know whether to go out or anything like that. But '77 was a great year because we, and you know, I played in New York. We won in '77, won in '78, and we had some of the toughest guys, as Ray and them were talking about. Tough guys, didn't like to lose. Whatever happened off the field, you know, there was a lot of things going on in '77. You know, Billy didn't like Reggie, you know, Thurman didn't like Reggie, you know, and all this other stuff was going on. But I tell you what, when they went between the lines, they went out there to beat you. They were professionals. And, you know, I'll tell you another funny story. In '77, Mickey Rivers, my homie, I love him to death. He is one of the funniest guys ever. So Mickey didn't like to play a lot, you know, when he didn't have a good day at the racetrack. So one night he didn't want to play. He's laying on the training table, and Billy goes in there and he goes, "What's wrong, Mickey?" He goes, "I don't feel good," you know. And so George calls Billy and says, "What's wrong with Mickey? Why ain't he playing?" He goes, "Well, he had a bad day at the track, so you know he needs a little bit of money." He goes, "Tell Rivers I'll send him a check. Put him in the lineup." So he goes back in there and he goes, "Mickey," he says, "George is going to send you down a check. I'm putting you in the lineup." He goes, "Call him back and tell him black people don't take checks." So he calls George back. And so George, "I'll send him some money, put him in a lineup." So he sends down an envelope about, I think, I don't know, it's about $5,000. Mickey puts it in his back pocket. So first inning starts, bottom of the first, Mickey comes up, bang, base hit to right. He's on first base. Now he's telling the story. He's saying, "You know, I'm thinking Willie Randolph's up. I'm going to steal second. I can get this guy." Well, he takes off for second, and Randolph lines a ball right to the shortstop, and he dives back into first. He's safe. Thurman Munson's up next. So he says, "I'm going to go again." He takes off, and Thurman rifles a ball off the right field wall. And when he did, Mickey didn't see it. he slides into second, and the money in his back pocket comes out. So there's $100 bills going. Thurman's round in first going, run, Mickey, run. He's going, no, fat boy, not till I get my money. So those are the kind of guys I played with. I loved every one of them. 77, we went on to win the World Series. And I'll never forget the last out of 77 was, I'm standing there and I watched the Yankees, you know, with Chris Chambliss hit the big home run in 76 and all 100,000 people ran on the field and he's trying to get to home plate. Well, I'm standing at shortstop, last out. Reggie Jackson had an amazing game. 3 home runs. The crowd was electric. The stadium was rocking and rolling. And I'm standing there talking to myself. Mike Torres is the pitcher, and I'm going, am I going to run for the mound or am I going to run for my life? So about the time I got that out, Lee Lacy pops the ball up. Torres catches it. Take off for the mound. By the time I got there, there's 3,000 people there, and I'm running for my life. They're grabbing everything, you know, but that was the first thrill, and another dream came true. I always wanted to play for the Yankees. I wanted to play in the World Series and win a World Championship, and I did. And so now comes 1978, and I know everybody, all you Red Sox fans, you can leave, because I'm going to talk about Boston. You know. My brother-in-law over there, oh, I love him dearly, he's a Red Sox fan, so we go at it all the time. But 78 started, and early in the spring, I fouled the ball off my leg. And I was in there in the training room, getting some ice on it, and Goose was in there. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. And here comes Piniella. Piniella was one of the funniest guys, and he could always get George. So I'm got the paper, you know, Goose has got the paper. We're kind of sitting there early in the morning, not thinking anything. You know how when you're reading the paper and you can feel emotion? Well, I dropped the paper down, and it's George Steinbrenner. He comes in, and I'm going, ooh, what's he doing in here? You know? He goes over to Gene Monahan, he goes, Gene, he says, I need a vitamin B12 shot. And over there they had a long counter. And Gene goes, okay, boss, go over there and drop your pants. So just as he goes over there and gets ready to drop his pants, Piniella comes around the corner. And he goes, hey, Gino, just take that needle and throw it. You can't miss. And George snatched his pants up. His face turned red. He looked at Piniella. He goes, Piniella, get your fat butt on that scale every day, and every day you are overweight, I'm going to find your rear ends. And you walked out, and I tell you what, Goose and I and Piniella, we were just dying laughing. But 78 was one of the greatest years of all time. Everybody knows about 1978. We started off, we were hurt, banged up. What'd you say? Okay. So we started off 78, we were kind of banged up. Red Sox are playing 750 baseball, and but we started to get well. I got well, Catfish came back, and we had an amazing Ron Guidry. One of the greatest years I've ever seen in my life by a pitcher. He was just dominant, you know, guys just tried to foul the ball off at times, you know, but we knew every fifth day we were going to win. But we started to win. We started to put streaks together, went 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, and we got closer to the Red Sox. We knew that if we got to September, we played them 7 times, that we would catch them. And that's what happened. We got closer, closer. September, we went up there and we beat them 4 straight. It was called the Boston Massacre. Then we turned around, went back home, beat them 2 out of 3. Well, we wound up taking the lead. And going into the last day of the season, El Tiante throws a shutout against Toronto.
Yes!
They posted on the board, Catfish Hunter, we're getting beat by the Indians. So we lose. Now we got to go to Boston. We're walking up the tunnel, I'll never forget it. We lost the coin flip. And they said we got to go to Boston. So we go to Boston. We get there night before. We're at the hotel and we were nervous. Everybody, it was a little bit different feeling. So we said, okay, we're going to go to Daisy Buchanan's. Everybody's going to go there, have a drink, relax, we'll be okay. Go get on the elevator, start down the elevator, Steinbrenner gets on. Oh boy, you know, because he had been getting on my wife at the time about, hey, what have you been feeding this guy? He's like 0 for 20, you know, and she told me about it. So when he got on the elevator, I didn't say anything to him. He just didn't say anything to me either. You know, when the elevator opened to get out, he turns around and goes, "Tomorrow's going to be your day." I said, "Yeah." So we go out to dinner and come back. So now we go to the ballpark the next day. Different feeling. You know, the whole world had stopped. And I bet every one of you know where you were when that game was played. How many were at the game?
Everybody.
Everybody. There had to be, over the years, there had to be 20 million people come up to me and say, "I was at that game." Well, it only holds 32,000, but I say, "Oh yeah, you were? Okay, great," you know. But the game, you know, was a crystal clear day. It was a Jewish holiday, and everybody was watching the game. And we started off batting practice. I'm taking batting practice, and Mickey Rivers, my homie, I said, "Hey, Mickey, I'm struggling a little bit. Can I borrow your bat?" He goes, "Yeah." So he gives me his bat, take batting practice. I'm starting to swing pretty good. You know, I'm getting a little bit locked in. So I fouled the ball right off the end of it, and it got a hairline crack right under the tape. So, not thinking anything of it, game starts. And you could feel the tension as the game went on. You know, early in the game, Yastrzemski hit a home run right around the pole, and then Lou Piniella, who doesn't get enough credit, made two great plays in that game. And one was earlier, and I know analytics is big today, but back then we kind of used our brains, and we kind of looked at, you know, what was going on. And Piniella's playing right field later in the game, and the sun was crystal clear. And Freddie Lynn comes up, and he knew Guidry was only pitching on 3 days rest. So he said, you know, I knew his slider wasn't really good, you know, so I moved over a couple steps on Freddie Lynn. And we threw a slider, Guidry threw a slider, and Lynn hooked it towards the corner. Piniella went back, and he made a great play on it. And then seventh inning, I come up. I foul a ball off my leg. And I didn't wear my guard. I used to wear a shin guard after spring training. I got a blood clot and I had surgery. I didn't wear it that day. And so I go back to the on-deck circle, and Mickey Rivers walks up and he goes, "Hey, homie, you got the wrong bat. That's cracked." I'm not paying attention. Mike Torres isn't throwing any warm-up pitches. He told me, he said, I didn't think he was going to take that long, so, you know, I didn't throw any warm-up pitches. So as I started back to the plate, we only had 24 guys that day. Randolph had a hamstring, and Bob Lemon had pinch hit for Brian Doyle, so I knew I had to play because we hadn't really had any more infielders. So I started back to the plate, and the bat boy walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Bucky, Mickey told me," he said, "you got the wrong bat. Take this one." Not thinking anything of it. I choked up like I always do, got back in the box, and Mike Torres tried to throw a sinker down and in, and he missed. And I hooked a fastball, and I hit it pretty good. But I didn't know it was going to be a home run until around the first base. Then I saw Yastrzemski legs buckled, and I saw the umpire signal was a homer. And people always ask me, "What do you think when you're rounding third base?" I said, "I'm thinking we're ahead. That's it." Because in Boston, 3-2 lead with that team that they had, we had to score more runs. But the game then, from the seventh inning on, got really tight. It was the most tense game I've ever played in my entire life. And, you know, we come down to the last inning. Mickey, you know, Goose against Yastrzemski, but before that, Piniella made another great play because Burleson led off with a base hit. Jerry Remy hit a ball that kind of got lost in the sun, and Lou made a great play, caught it, stopped Burleson from going to third base. Jim Rice hit a long fly ball that would have tied the game up, and I wouldn't be standing here tonight if that happened. But he stopped it, and then it came down to Goose and Yastrzemski. And Goose said that he had a dream the night before that it was going to come down to him and Yastrzemski. And people said to him, "Well, what were you thinking?" He goes, "Well, I'm either going to get him out or I'm going to be hunting in Colorado the next day, you know." So, Goose, I'm standing in shortstop, and they're saying, "Well, what were you thinking?" I'm going, "Don't hit it to me," you know. and Nettles is yelling at Goose, "Pop him up, Goose, pop him up." Well, Goose had a knack of reaching back and throwing a fastball that could really jump. I mean, he could throw it, and the ball just exploded. And That's what happened. He reached back, threw a fastball. It jumped about this far. Yastrzemski popped the ball up to Nettles, and I went over and caught the pop-ups because Nettles didn't like to catch them. And when he popped it up, he yelled at the goose, "Not to me!" You know. So Nettles catches the ball, and you know, it was the greatest feeling ever that, you know, we had just won. And so we go in the clubhouse, and I'll never forget, you know, everybody's jumping up, running around. We go into the training room, and we're laughing and giggling, drinking beers and things like that. And somebody knocks on the door. So I open the door, and it's George Steinbrenner standing there. And he looked at me, he goes, "I told you it was going to be your day." And I said, "Yeah, but if I had struck out, you'd have traded my rear end." But I tell you what, I wouldn't trade anything for the world, man. And that's where I got my middle initial, Bucky F and Dent. And it came from Don Zimmer. The story goes that Don Zimmer was driving in the mountains in North Carolina. He got out of the car, his wife Sootsie, he got out of the car, he went over to the edge of the mountain and just screamed, "Bucky F and Dent." So after that, that's where I got my middle name. But you know, a few years later, Don Zimmer was a great baseball mind, and a few years later, he was going to be the bench coach for the Yankees. So I had been traded. That was the worst day when I got traded to Texas. And so he calls me, and I just redid my house. Brand new carpet, everything, white carpet. So Zim calls me up and he goes, "Hey Bucky," he says, would you mind renting me your house since you're going to Texas?" And I go, "Don, you gotta be kidding me." I said, "I put white carpet in my house and you're gonna spit tobacco all over it?" I said, "There's no way I'm renting my house to you." And I started laughing, you know. Well, before I left go to spring training, I took all the pictures that said "Socks is dented," and I put them behind every door. So every time he opened the door, it said "Socks dented," you know. So later on that year, I called him and I said, "Hey, Zim, how's it going, man? How you liking my house?" He goes, "You know what? I love it, Bucky." He says, "But I tell you what, I took every one of those pictures and turned them around backwards, so I wouldn't have to look at them, you know." But he was great, and I loved Don Zimmer, and my days in New York, I just loved him. I loved playing with the guys and Thurman Munson was one of the all-time greats, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to tell you a story about my buddy El Tiante over there. El Tiante, when he came over, his locker was next to mine. And Louis, now picture this, Louis used to skate through the stadium. He used to do his exercise by skating underneath Yankee Stadium. So nobody knew about it really. So one day, the door opens, and here comes Tiant through the door. Now just picture this. He's got headphones, he's got a cigar, he's got a cut-off shirt about this big, he's got knee pads, shorts on, and rollerblades. As soon as he came through the door, Nettles stood up and goes, "Look at the disco gorilla." But Louis nicknamed me Blackfoot, you know, because I have a little Indian in me. He used to call me Blackfoot all the time, but he is one of the most tremendous competitors I ever played with, played against, and actually I did pretty good against him. You know, you gotta look at the record, Lou, but actually I did pretty good against him. But he should be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm hoping this year that he gets in because he's one of the greatest pitchers, one of the greatest guys. I love him to death. And the other guy is Thurman Munson. Thurman Munson should be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever played with, and he is was a tremendous competitor. Unbelievable. And I'll tell you the story. You know, they mentioned my baseball school. My baseball school. I'll tell you how I started my baseball school. And this is a true story. 1975, when I came home for the White Sox, you know, back then we had to work. We didn't make a lot of money in the big leagues, you know, so we had to work in the winter. So I'm home, and the phone rings one day, and they call me, and they say, "Bucky, this is Larry Hoskins. I run the Pompano Beach Baseball School, and we would like you to be an instructor. We had to fire Thurman Munson." I go, "You fired Thurman Munson?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Yesterday we came out, and Thurman was laying behind the mound with no shirt on, smoking a cigarette, sunning himself, calling balls and strikes. So we had to let him go. And so I started my career at the baseball school, and it finally became the Bucky Dent baseball school years later. And I was very, very proud of that, because over the years, I can't tell you how many kids who have grown up come up to me and say, Bucky, I had the greatest time at your baseball school. And you know, I would look at them and I go, did I yell at you? And they go, yeah, you did, but that's okay, you know. But so many kids over the years, and I'm very proud of it, because a lot of them went on, some went to the major leagues, some went play college ball. But the one thing we always try to get them to do is understand that if you dream big, like I did when I started when I was 9 years old, one of my biggest things was to play for the Yankees, and all of my dreams came true. I played for the Yankees. I played, you know, in a World Series. I hit one of the biggest home runs in baseball history, and I got to manage the New York Yankees, you know. All of my dreams came true, and I wanted these kids to experience that. And I want them to understand that if you work hard and you play hard and you do the right things, that you can fulfill your dreams, because I'm standing here and I'm telling you that I did. And through my baseball school, we did a lot of great things. You know, we started a golf tournament, and all the money went to young athletes. We gave them scholarships to, you know, to go on and fulfill their dreams. We started, we gave out money to the hospitals. We ran a charity. We donated money to hospitals for cancer. And you know, we did a lot of great things, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I just you know, want to say tonight that you know, those things, if you work hard at it and you believe, that it can all come true. And I want to congratulate to all the honorees tonight. I'm humbled, I'm honored to be a part of this amazing class of inductees and the Hall of Fame organization. And what I say tonight to everybody here is to keep dreaming. And God bless everybody.